Hello, it's Rebecca. This week is all about propagating on the online business school. And so lots of it you'll see is in the PowerPoint kind of presentation. The pictures for that I took last year, so over spring and summer. And they don't include a method that I've tested since that works really well for propagating root cuttings and kind of softwood cuttings. It will probably work for hardwood cuttings, but I don't have any hardwood cuttings that I've tried it on. So I'm going to show you that and also show you how I go about mixing my mix for propagating those cuttings in. Now, in honesty, it's not particularly complicated. You can propagate in whatever you want, but I choose to use a 50-50 mix of perlite and compost, get it nice and wet, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to use it for this method here. Okay, so this is my 50-ish mix of compost. I am literally just going to put a well in the middle of it, pour in a load of water. I like to make it nice and wet. The reason I like to make it nice and wet is because, in general terms, I don't really want to water very much at all until there's some sort of signs of roots. Once there are signs of, like, if it needs watering, then you can see that from below. Never try and work that out from on top. Pretty much with everything, actually. If I make it too wet, I'll just add some more compost until it feels about right. There is no exact science on this. It's just feel. It's quite a therapeutic kind of process. I like the mixing and the noise. And I'm literally just going to keep mixing until it feels about right. I'm wearing gloves. These gloves absolutely stink, but they are really waterproof. So the waterproofness goes all the way up to the wrist, and that to me feels like it's about right. So you want it to be feeling water, not holding water, not particularly soaking. So a bit like if some of you soil block, that's a very similar sort of mix, I guess, in terms of texture and how it feels. I don't soil block. I tried it. I got gorgeous seedlings. I can't lie about that. They were absolutely phenomenal, but they were also a nightmare to look after, and I just don't have the time for that. Absolutely a nightmare for me personally to look after. Okay, so that is my mix ready and done. We're going to come back to that in a second. Okay, so these are some hydrangea cuttings. I've got a glass full of them that have been sat in my kitchen for about a week, which is probably longer than they should have been sat there, but this is when I'm getting round to it. So you can see, hopefully, let me see if I can get this a bit better focused. It's wet. Look, you'll be able to see better on this one because it's not wet. You can see here that is where we'd get a new leaf bud stem. There's another one here that's difficult to see because it's wet, and then further up here you get a softer cutting because this end is nice and soft, and there's another one here. So I think that I'm going to get probably 2 cuttings out of this. So what you want to do is show you on this one actually, just here, but normally I wouldn't waste the end bit. So what you want to do is to cut just below, so that you've still got both of these buds. Then you want to take those buds off at the bottom, okay? Because those buds are where your hormone is strongest, and so that's where you're going to get best rooting from. And then at this end here, you want to cut just above. There's no active growth to see on these, so I'm not going to take these end bits off. If there was green growth, and there is on some of my cuttings that I have to my left, then I would kind of cut it in half so that my cutting is very much so focusing its energy on this bottom end here. So I've got quite a few of these to do, and I'm going to do them all in one go, and that will make sense when I have got to that point. So I'm going to speed through as I do. There might be a video, there might not be. I'm sorry about the terrible nails. I was having fun on Friday night. And then I'll show you what to do next. The key thing is to keep them all the right way up. Now I'm going to take my bunch of things that need sorting out of my glass of water, and I'm going to put this back in my glass of water in the right direction so I know that it's doing the right thing. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is prepare, so this is a piece of compost, home-based compost, peat-free compost, and I've cut it into a nice long strip. Okay, next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my wet compost mix and I'm literally going to shove it on top. That is all I'm doing with it. So the way that I've tested this method is that I have used about an inch, about a centimetre and a half, so not quite an inch, and I do put it pretty close to the top. I like this method because it takes up little space. The other thing I like about it is that once your seedlings are ready, and I'll show you what's supposed to happen, you should be able to plant them, or your cuttings. Like if you follow the method, you should have really healthy, big root systems that have been kept nice and moist because they're in some sort of plastics with to keep the water in. And so literally I am just packing this on top of my piece of plastic. I'm not being particularly careful about it. There's some going off the edges and I'll deal with that in a minute. What I do need to do, and what I have learned from mistakes, is that I need to leave a space at each end to start the rolling. Okay, so this is actually a method that is in the books. It's just not one that I have seen anybody practicing, or at least demonstrating that they practice. The next thing I'm going to do is take my gloves off because I don't have the dexterity in these gloves to sort out these cuttings. So these are the hydrangea cuttings that you saw me start to take, and I'm going to lay those at about 3 to 5 centimetres each across my compost. So I'm literally pushing them down. So this is the bottom end, that's really important, and this is the top end, and that's why I put them all in the glass in the same direction. So not too precise because I really don't think it's necessary. So I'm just putting some in both directions, making sure that I'm leaving myself enough space at the end to roll. Like this one's probably a bit too close to the end, but I want to make sure that I've got enough space, so I might move that one in a minute. Okay, so the reason that I have used supermarket bag, like compost bag, is because it's a bit of waste plastic that I have lying around. I have plenty of it. I usually use it to collect manure, but as long as I'm recycling it and it's not single use, I am happy. So this works well. The first ones I did with PPX, which I think is a bit of a waste of PPX. I mean, I've prepared the PPX so that I can use it time and again, but PPX is expensive. So from my perspective, I don't really want to be using PPX to be doing this. Okay, so I'm going to have slightly too many cuttings using the spacing that I have, and I'm okay with that. Okay, the next bit might be tricky to film, but I'm going to give it a really good go, so we'll see what happens. Okay, so move a few things out of the way that I use as various table stands to be able to show you what I'm doing. Okay, so this is the far end. I have literally, you can see, just pushed them in, so there's a little bit of an indent, and then they're going to go into my propagator. These are hydrangeas, so you don't have to put them in the propagator, but it will speed the process up. All I want is to cover this bit and then to start to roll. Now, always looks a bit messy when you start. Excuse me sniffing. It's cold in here. Hence the coats and the jumper and the apron. Oh, see, the apron really does give a lovely extra That's those ridiculous nails again. I wanted to have a hint of yellow because I like to wear a hint of yellow. I didn't have any clean yellow clothes. So I wore navy, which is my second favourite colour, to the conference because those are mainly the colours that I have in my wardrobe. Painted my nails. It was very fun. It was very kind of common well-being activity before bed for me. Totally ridiculous time, one might add, to be doing your nails because, as is predicted, I fell asleep and they're smudged. But I wasn't doing them to look perfect, so that's okay. So I am rolling. Please excuse the sniffing. I'll get a tissue in just a second. And when I get to the end, I'm going to find some string to tie this. Okay, I am not blue piece prepared. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it to balance there. So it will balance. It will balance, and I'll come back to you. Okay, so I've got my bits of string. I'm literally going to lift the whole thing on top. Let's see if I can sushi lift this. And I am using string to tie. You could use string if you have it. I've got string in the workshop, so it makes sense. If you've got elastic bands and you're dexterous enough, or you've got someone to help you, I think that would work. Spare ribbon, like any random bits of string that you have, or like bits of cord, are going to do the job. Okay, so this is my top. You can see things poking out. This is the bottom that I am just going to pack and pat in. And then we have these trays. Now, let me get them. Excuse me. So these trays are non-essential. Anything that you can put underneath that is going to help you to keep your compost in place when you lift it up and move it around. The reality is that not that much comes out. And the more your roots start to form, the less will come out because they'll hold your compost in place. But as I don't have that root formation yet, I'm sticking them on these trays and they fit quite nicely into the propagators. I'm going to put another one just here. Okay, last video. For some of you, this is 100% going to feel a little bit like grandma sucking eggs or teaching you how to do so. Please, please, please forgive me. I'm doing this video because actually I didn't understand the land of taking cuttings, and I know that there will be others who just don't want to ask. So this is a bag of rosemary cuttings that I took, and a couple of other things I took from my mum's garden. My mum is older and looking after my elderly dad, and so every now and again I pop into their garden and just check on it. Now you can see that this bag of rosemary isn't dealt with. There's a piece of damp kitchen roll in there, and it's actually been like that, I won't lie, for almost 3 weeks in the fridge. Look, my rosemary looks fine. This is not what I recommend. Evidently, what you should do is sort things out straight away, but the reality is that sometimes you don't have time, okay? So if you're taking cuttings from a friend's garden, this is how I would do it. I would cut off a nice hard bit of wood. These kind of softer bits are easier to work with, okay? You can see here there's a join. This is, I'm just going to pull it off there. Okay, I'm going to put the rest of it back in my bag. And I'm going to actually put this back in the fridge because I'm going to go and sort my kids out and deal with the rest later. Okay, so this is my cutting. This is a growing end. This is a nice, oh, let's try and get that a bit better focused. I can't. This is a nice heel. This pointy bit here. Oh, look, it's happier when there's more on the screen. Okay, and that's the bit I'm just going to trim a little bit with my secateurs that I've lost on my bench because I'm messy. So I am just going to trim off this little bit here. If I can, this little bit here. So I've got a nice, I was very happy when there's something else on the screen. Got a nice clean end here. Anyway, that's the best I can do. There were some lovely pictures in the video. Okay, so I am then going to strip off some of my bottom foliage, quite a lot of it, because that's what's going to go into my compost. And I am going to cut out all of my growing tip. Now the foliage on rosemary is quite fine, so I don't worry about it too much. But if you've got a big couple of leaves at the end, then it's really helpful to cut those in half. And that's the bit, all of this, that I'm going to put into the compost when I get that far.